everybody. Thank you for joining us once again on Japan by River Cruise. I am here in southern Japan. I am Bobby Judo, joined by
Ollie Horn here in southern United Kingdom.
We've got another great episode for you today. We're going to be talking about a spate of recent road rage incidents and how they're affecting Japanese society. Plus, as always, Ollie's got our weekly recommended river cruise.
Yes, this week's recommendation is an amphibious river cruise that starts on the streets of downtown Osaka and ends on the Dotonbori River. We recommend the second half and only the second half.
Yeah, screw that first half. And also, the Japanese river cruise could be rendered obsolete, at least according to a team of developers who are getting ready to roll out the world's first virtual river cruise. Later in the show, we'll give you their home addresses and instructions for making a mail bomb. What you do with that is up to you. But first, Soap Talk.
Bobby Judo, why do we call it Soap Talk? Is it because I can't say Sekken Banashi?
No, it's because you can say Sekken Banashi, which means soap talk. So congratulations on being able to say the wrong thing yet again this week.
How do you say small talk?
Sekken Banashi.
Same thing.
Sekken Banashi.
Bobby.
So
we've had quite enough of me talking about me on this show, so I'm going to...
I could never get enough of you talking about you. That's one of my favorite things to listen to. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it is impossible to like. I would go so far as to say that it is impossible to dislike Ollie Horn.
Oh, that's what a reviewer said. And then
Is it? Is it?
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
it?
Shows the system works. Do you know what? I feel like such an arse when I'm like sharing these things, but they do come back.
Well, I mean, I think there are a handful of people who have met you in person who would probably disagree with that. But I will say that every time I've seen you on stage, you really do have a way of winning over the audience members who don't know that you're a terrible person.
Thank you.
So, I actually started.
About me, Ollie. Well done.
What's that?
I managed to. I just congratulated myself there for managing to talk about me during your soap talk time. Good on me.
I was expecting nothing less. But no, I started posting a handful of things on YouTube again. One of them, I posted the lightning round from the last Tokyo roast battle, Bobby Judo versus Bill Miller. So if you're listening to the show and you want to get an idea of like what kind of stand-up, what kind of shows we do in Tokyo, please head to my YouTube channel and check that out. And
Bobby
then,
is a very good joke writer. Your roasts are very good. And I always enjoy when Bobby's about to go for a roast, he will send me his jokes in advance.
Yeah. And if you only know me from the
offer.
podcast, then I really feel like you might not know that I'm funny. So if you want to see what prepared jokes sound like, you can check them out on the Tokyo roast battle video.
Can we have some samples now? Why don't you tell a couple of your roast jokes about me?
About Ollie Horn?
Furthering the case that this section ultimately becomes about me.
I'm trying to remember what I actually did at your roast.
I could tell you one which I thought was hilarious, which is Ollie has made a career on the Japanese TV by eating the crumbs off my table. Something I learned about the crumbs off my table, very high in calories.
Yeah, I remember that one. I also remember they say when people are really good friends that they can finish each other's sentences. And so by that metric, Ollie is really good friends with everyone in the world because he finishes everyone's sentences.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's very funny.
But I put up a Japanese video as well. And you know, a lot of times in the past, I have a large back catalog of videos with advice for Japanese people, telling them what not to do from my high and mighty pedestal. But this was one about an English word that you should be careful using. I got a comment on my Instagram feed from a Japanese woman who was commenting on a picture of my daughter Ami. And
don't see how her gender's important, but whatever.
She said sexy shot, in terms of...
how old's your daughter?
She was 3 at the time. She's 4 now.
Okay, so at the time, that was not on. Now, I guess now it would be cool.
And we found out where Ollie draws the line. So yeah, no, I understand the nuance of sexy in Japanese. You know, this is one of those, they've taken it in as a loan word and they've made it, it's not the same word it is in English. In Japanese, when they say it, they tend to use it to mean very mature looking, or the Japanese for it would be like, iroke ga aru, or like iropoi, which means like more like sensual or adult in that. And they're okay with using that for children. You know, when you see a child making a very mature looking face or striking a pose that looks like a pose an adult would make, or, you know, a picture of a kid in a swimsuit, you know, it's not an inappropriate compliment in Japanese to say, oh, look how Japanese quotes sexy that is. For me, I think
may I just jump in? That's not universal though, right? Like there is even for Japanese people, there's still like people that wouldn't use that word because it's like maybe it's not inappropriate for the reasons that it would be in English, but it's still not a nice. It's not a nice thing to.
Well, I think yeah. So what I found out in the comments, so the video itself was saying, you know, if you're going to use this word, you should be aware that when you use it to an English speaker or in English, the connotations of this word are something that reminds you of sex or something that makes you want to have sex. So don't use it to talk about a child.
Talk about my 3-year-old child, please.
And there are a handful of people in the comments who have said, but in Japanese, the nuance isn't like that. It's a little bit different. There are a handful of people in the comments who've said Japanese people would never do that. Japanese people would not use sexy to refer to a child, which I'm like, I've gotten at least 5 comments, mostly from Japanese women, that have used the word sexy to describe my children. Not to mention that there is a pop group called Sexy Zone that was founded when the members were like 11-year-old boys. So the idea that
you say that as if the members transitioned.
Well, they're no longer 11.
Founded when they were boys.
Yeah. Well, they had some very, I'm sure, costly medical procedures to turn them from 11 to 19 over the course of 8 years. But
Japan's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So
do you reckon that the use of the word sexy in Japanese, that sexy word, is used more liberally because your children are half children?
I don't think so. Because I do think one of the main, in trying to explain this, so one of the other comments was like, well, if we wanted to say iroke ga aru or iropoi or otonapoi in Japanese, what words could we use in English to do that? And people were suggesting like, well, should I say that your children are attractive? Should I say that they're erotic? And I was like, both steps in the wrong direction.
Nice intuition, wrong outcome.
But ultimately, why do you
want to say that anyway?
Yeah, that's the thing. In trying to respond to that, I was like, okay, so there's this mode of thought, this mode of thinking in Japanese that says it's okay to ascribe iropoi, which is erotic, which is sensual, to a child. And I think it's part of the idol culture. I think it's part of the sexualizing childhood and innocence that is this fundamental thing that I think it's a problem in a lot of cultures, but in Japan it's above board in a way that it's not in the US. In Japan, you see these 45-year-old men going to idol group concerts and looking at these 10 to 20-year-old women as though they're sexual objects. And in America, I'm sure there are 45-year-old men who do the exact same thing, but they couldn't go to the shows publicly. They couldn't participate in the handshake events or the picture-taking events or announce their fandom without being
Didn't they have to cut
suspicious.
A handshaking event short because one guy had cum all over his hand?
Yeah.
Didn't I read that story last year?
That happened. That's a thing happened. And if you ask a fan, they'll say, you know, they're supporting them, they're looking at them as their own children, which is why they don't love women who are perfect singers, perfect dancers, because they want to encourage them and support them as they grow. But half of it is this, I want to take care of you, I want to support you, and the other half of this is I'm sexually attracted to these children. And so I started with a very simple video saying, I don't want you to call my kids sexy.
I love you going through this thought process. This will be a simple video. I'll just explain that sexy doesn't mean the same thing in English. And now you're having to somehow account for the fact that paedophilia is a human emotion that men sometimes do have to repress.
So ultimately, even as in my responses, I want to be like, okay, so if you want to say that in Japanese and you're looking for a way to translate it into English, castrate yourself.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I explained to some friends visiting Tokyo in Halloween, right? And anyone that's been to Japan during Halloween season knows that it's comfortably the biggest party season.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, isn't it coming up soon?
It is, yeah. And Japan rules at Halloween. Japan does Halloween so good.
Right, and something that I kind of had to explain to a visiting friend was when he thought that girls were dressing, in his words, provocatively, right? I'm not sure what he thinks they're provoking, but maybe wearing like suspenders and short skirts and kind of push-up bras.
Right.
This almost sounds stupid coming out of my mouth now, but I think what I said was reasonable.
That's okay. Everything does.
It's what I was trying to explain was I don't think it's the same. I don't think that like the psyche of dressing like that is as sexual or has the same kind of sexual intention as, say, when a girl in the West might do the same. Right? Like I don't think that like lingerie, etc., is a proxy for sexual interest or sexual availability in the same way as it can be in the West. I'm not saying that girls wear clothes to, all the usual caveats, right? But I have this instinct that like what we think of as sexy clothing, right, is different.
Yeah. I like how you left those caveats completely unsaid, which is why you got reviews like those bad reviews. That one social justice warrior who left a review about your show being like white privilege. It's because you're aware that you're saying something that is borderline not okay, and you think that the self-awareness makes it okay that you're saying it, but then you don't delve into why you're still saying it.
Cause maybe just I assume that everyone's as clever as I am and it doesn't need to be explained. But for the sake of completeness, you are right. A social justice warrior did take a lot of issues with my show. Not really understanding any.
There were like 9 specific books that she thought you should have read before you did your show.
Also, she's. In fact, I can't even say she because they don't identify as a female. It's they. They sent me a message saying. I should watch Nanette to learn how real comedy should be done, and also quoting one specific joke from the show which they loved, saying more like that, please. So make of that what you will. But the subtext is you should never infer someone's intentions from their clothing, right?
Right.
That's also a claim I can't make because, like, if you're going to dress like a Nazi, probably a Nazi. But you shouldn't infer someone's sexual availability or intention or consent from their clothing. That said, certainly in British culture, there's a way of dressing for a night out, which is kind of deliberately sexually provocative, right? And I think that could be. My feeling is the same, like that same narrative that is created by the clothing, just isn't the same in Japan, and I'm finding it really hard to articulate why. But
I'm inclined to agree, but I think so. In Japan, I've found it a lot more evident that girls and women enjoy dressing in certain ways for their own enjoyment and not for any kind of attention, not for any kind of awareness of the male gaze or anything like that. And that makes me interrogate whether or not my perception, which is in line with yours, about what people's intentions are when they dress back home. Maybe I just didn't have the awareness or the sense back home that women were not necessarily dressing to appeal to men. But I'm sure in America, there are also the same amount of women who are dressing up the way that they're dressing for themselves.
Sure. Oh, I'm totally with you. But, I guess there's probably no way of knowing. We can never ask women, can we? I guess all we can do is speculate, just you and me.
let me finish this by telling you the one thing that my daughters have told me that in this is again when they were 3, which kind of like opened my eyes and was kind of one of these big wow moments for me was they're into all the girly stuff. They're into Disney princesses, they're into Hello Kitty, and they're into Purikua, which is these Japanese idol cartoons. They're like the modern Sailor Moon, but like a million times cutesier and pinker and kira kira sparkling. So I am okay with all of that. I try to encourage them to watch, the more modern, stronger Disney princesses. I will pretend to be Hello Kitty's mom for days on end, but I do not like encouraging them to look into the idol culture.
Hello Kitty's mum? What does Hello Kitty's mum do?
She bakes apple pies.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that you bake an apple pie?
Well, I don't get to pretend to be Hello Kitty because they want to be Hello Kitty. Right. So I have to be, yeah.
And is one of the reasons why Hello Kitty has these developmental issues is because she has an absent father?
Oh, no, her dad's there, but he doesn't bake anything.
Right.
So yeah, again, like I don't mind. I do all the Disney princess games. I play makeup. I play this and that, but I don't encourage the idol stuff because I don't like that sexualization of idol culture. I don't like that it is a business geared almost entirely towards men who are sexualizing young women. So I try to stay away from that, and I've told them that I don't like Purikua. And one of my daughters asked me, why don't you like Purikua? And I had a hard time explaining it, but I said, because I don't think that women have to look like that, dress like that, or act like that in order to have value, in order to be worth something. Do you understand? And Ami looked right back at me and she said, yeah, you don't like girls who don't dress the way you want them to. And I was like, oh shit.
No.
And so it was one of those moments where it was like, there is nothing wrong with dressing like that. And if you want to dress like that and act like that because that's who you are and that's what you want to do for yourself, that's totally acceptable. It's just, as they get older, I'm going to have to try to figure out how to let them be who they are and navigate the awful, awful world of male attention that they will get because of it.
Right. So basically, you need to like knock their teeth out or something. Like just do something to. Actually, that wouldn't work. Not having nice teeth is a cutesy thing, isn't it? In idol groups. Oh no. All right. Well, I'll keep brainstorming ways to make your children uglier. While we look at if.
In the meantime, I wanted to mention we don't have any mail this week.
Oh no! What mailbox full? Is that what it is? No room in the inn.
I could be. I haven't looked into exactly why, but no new messages, which is unfortunate because we set aside 2 to 3 minutes every week to discuss the messages and to read the messages that we absolutely don't want to receive through our email function on our website at www.japanbyrivercruise.com.
That's japanbyrivercruise.com. Don't go there and send us a mail with your river cruise recommendations. It wouldn't impress us. Bobby, it's time for the news.
Right. So you've been out of Japan for the last, year and a half now? But
a good year.
Time flies. But there have been a handful of road rage incidents here in Japan over that last year and a half, and they're starting to get a lot more coverage in the news, partially because there are cameras everywhere, and there are more and more drive recorders. There are more people installing cameras in their cars, just in case they get into some kind of trouble on the road. And
I got in trouble on the road.
Yeah.
Early this year. Yeah, when I was in Tokyo earlier in the year, would have been. Followed the sat nav and went straight up a one-way street. The moment I crossed the threshold, just inches into that street, police car flashes, blah, 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 pull over please, do you speak Japanese? Yes, a little, ha ha ha. He said, did you see the no entry sign? I said, no. He said, well, it's covered by a branch. And he said, did the sat nav tell you to go up here? I went, yeah. He went, yeah, the sat nav's wrong. I said, I said, like, what did I say in Japanese? I think I said, "Am I the first person today?" And he went, "No." So this guy was just like camping there, looking to give points. But
Right.
loophole. Turns out you take the points in your Japanese license. I still have my British license. I get double points. And he was really nice about it. And he told me I had to fill out a form and pay, I think, 7,000 yen. But he didn't seem to take much pride in doing anything other than obviously I wasn't the first foreigner he dealt with too, because he knew his way around the gaijin card. He knew about how to put the names in the right order, and he was like showing off to me that he knew how to do all this. And I was like, I think I know your game. So I have been on the other end of traffic cops.
Yeah.
This was, by the way, on the way to Mount Fuji. I was driving my friend to Mount Fuji, and I managed to go the wrong way on a highway because I was so stressed out after this. I was really alert, and I wasn't following the GPS. I was following signs, and so I followed the sign. And I got on an expressway, which took another 40 minutes to get off because there was traffic. So 40 minutes the wrong way to Mount Fuji. Had to pay for the privilege of getting off that expressway, turn around, back on again. Didn't really see much Fuji in the end.
Huh. So that has nothing to do with today's news topic, but
yes,
it
has something to do with me.
It was absolutely fascinating to listen to. Instead, I didn't mean trouble on the road, like getting pulled over by the police. I kind of meant if you were driving the wrong way on the highway, somebody else would need to record that so that they would be able to demonstrate in a court of law that you were driving the wrong way on the highway and caused an accident. So
I didn't cause an accident. I caused nothing. I barely did anything. The pigs got me.
Hypothetically speaking. So, do you have road rage incidences in England?
Yeah, I guess we do.
When two drivers, get on each other's nerves, and then one of them forces the other one to pull over and starts a fight.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. I really like watching the Russian ones because they take their road rage really seriously.
Yeah, in the U.S. a while back, we had a whole epidemic of it where people were pulling people's pets out of cars and throwing them onto the freeway, and some road rage murders and things like that. Here in Japan recently, there were a couple of people who died because a guy who was upset with them. It's called aori unten in Japanese, and somebody will follow you and get too close to your bumper. They'll ride your bumper, they'll pull around in front of you, and they'll pump the brakes, or they'll force you to drive in ways that cause you to swerve, or they'll force you to stop. And there was a guy on the highway who had forced a family in their car to stop in the fast lane, on the shoulder of the fast lane. And when he was getting out and hassling them, another car on the highway hit them from behind, and 2 people in the car died.
Oh, no.
And so that was huge national news. That was a while ago now. And just recently, there were a handful of other aori unten incidents.
What does aori mean? I know what
aori is to fan. I want to say it's to fan the flames. Hang on, I'm gonna have to. Aoru. I know it's the word. Aoru. Aoru. In English. So
Google Translate has
to
translated
stir up,
aori
to agitate, to sway. So
right.
Yeah. So even you can use it in a lot of different ways. When I do crowd work as an MC here, they'll say my job is to be the aori yaku. So it's my job to get the crowd stirred up, to get the crowd going. But aori unten is driving in a way that's intended to agitate somebody else. So
my new favorite way of dealing with people that are difficult on the road is not to make eye contact. I think the thing they crave is for you to acknowledge that they've tried to make you go faster or try to get you in the way.
So one of the things that this has brought to the Japanese national attention recently, there was an incident where the guy had the video on the driving recorder on his camera in his car where a person forced him to stop and then got out of the car and then came to his window, and the guy was clearly belligerent and he's swinging his arms and everything and this and that and yelling and screaming, and the driver of the car that was being harassed couldn't hear what he was saying, so he rolled down the window. And the guy came through the window and punched him a bunch of times and beat him bloody. And all the while, a woman with a flip phone was recording it. The aggressor's girlfriend, I guess, was recording with a flip phone. So this became huge news. And the news is not only scaring Japanese people into purchasing these dash cams in incredible quantities, it's boosted the sales of the dash cams like exponentially, but also it's making people aware that like they don't understand traffic laws. They're discussing all of these different traffic patterns and patterns of driving on the highways, and it's making Japanese people realize that they don't know basic traffic laws, like you're supposed to yield for pedestrians or you're supposed to use your turn signal before.
This is before you've turned. It's to indicate, right, rather than like declare. This reminds me. I've got two. I lived on my second house in Japan was on an extremely narrow road. It was obviously a road that wasn't designed for cars back in the day, right?
Right.
And so you could just about fit a car down it, but nothing more. And it was the road that connected a main road where one of the stations was on, and like a main expressway, and cars would just dart down there, right? They would be doing like 30 or 40 kilometers an hour when it's like there's like little old ladies and stuff,
right?
And it would really wind me out that people would be on their phones, and so I'm such an intimidating figure, right? In like compared to their rubbish little cars. Often, particularly when there was like an egregious example, I would stand in front of their car and not move until they put their phone down, and like make it clear that's what I was upset about, because people would just literally be texting or calling while speeding down, potentially killing old people. And I remember
in that case they would be in the wrong, but you would be technically doing aori. You would be doing yagarase for like the people,
even though I was on a crossing.
Well, I mean, yeah, standing in front of somebody's car and not letting them go is functionally the same as pulling in front of somebody's car.
Right.
And
only if I'm a
pumping
car.
the brakes.
Another example, I remember I hit a car with an umbrella. So this is a story that I don't think I've ever told anyone. I was in Osaka doing a show, walking to Ed's house where I was staying, and I genuinely nearly got hit by a girl who was texting. I was walking across a crossing, and it was clear for me to go, and she just didn't realize that I was there. She swerved round, and I like knowing that if I didn't attract attention somehow, like I'd get hit. I just had a long umbrella and just like instinctively reached out and tapped the car, and it really shook her, and because she thought she'd hit me, but actually she'd only hit the umbrella.
Yeah.
And I said to her in Japanese, you can't use your phone while driving. And she then got really cross when she realised that she hadn't killed anyone. She then wanted to get all defensive. And also she took issue with the fact that a foreigner was telling her what to do.
Yeah.
She started filming me, and I was just thinking, there's nothing to film. I've not got any.
So
maybe that's one of the videos that's doing the rounds. Maybe foreigner with umbrella.
The thing that was insane to me about this was that this particular couple, the aori unten guy and they kept calling him a BMW otoko because he was driving a test drive rented BMW, and the woman who was filming on her flip phone, they called her garake onna, which means flip phone woman.
Yeah.
When they were able to identify them, there were all of these reports of them doing aori unten in the past, and all of these reports of them doing all kinds of things to kind of like agitate or cause problems at restaurants and things like that. And all of these stories about this same couple started to surface. And these are stories from weeks ago, months ago, and they had video footage for almost all of them. Like an incident where they claimed that they'd spilled something too hot in a restaurant and they were trying to get the restaurant to give them compensation or to admit fault by signing a notebook, and they have video of this on record. Or the guy was driving a completely different car and swerving back and forth around a truck, and they had video footage from like a couple different angles of that as well. And so for me, it's
they're
like,
second to Bobby Judo. They are the most well documented people in Japan.
Yeah, it's insane.
Do you reckon they're doing it deliberately?
So I have been on a bunch of different TV shows where, you know, all of the newscasters are reporting this and, you know, telling the details of the story. And there's every single time there is a reporter or a newscaster or somebody who off camera goes, "This is big dash cam." Like, this is the dash cam industry pulling the strings to drive up their sales.